You could feel the anger tonight at a Board of Trustees meeting in Thornton Township. The board and citizens looking for accountability to their finances, while the township supervisor...
Deep debt, and that is the finding of an investigation of village finances and the spending habits of...
Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dolton, Illinois, has shocked the entire community by pulling off what can only be described as a masterful disappearing act. Just days ago, she stood at a fiery town hall, passionately defending herself against accusations of misconduct, waving her finger at critics, and boldly claiming that all the allegations were baseless. She appeared defiant and unshaken, unbothered by the mounting pressure. Now, in a shocking twist, Henyard is nowhere to be found, leaving the town in disbelief and sending rumors swirling about her sudden disappearance. According to reports, Henyard, often referred to as Supermayor, has crossed the border and seemingly vanished without a trace. Her disappearance wasn't subtle at all, and many believe she orchestrated it under the cover of controversy, using the chaos to carefully execute her exit plan. But here's the kicker. She didn't leave without a trace. She left behind a trail of fiery speeches and mounting allegations. Word on the street is that she absconded with a large sum of money, allegedly embezzled from public funds and funneled through her namesake charity. This bombshell has only fueled the firestorm of speculation surrounding her exit. The charity, which had been under intense scrutiny for months, was shut down recently after failing to account for millions in donations, raising suspicions of financial mismanagement that have yet to be addressed. Henyard's abrupt departure, combined with these serious accusations, has only intensified public outrage. The timing of her vanishing act is especially suspicious, coming at a time when an investigation into her lavish spending, like that infamous $40,000 Amazon shopping spree, was in full swing. Dolton residents, already drained from the chaos surrounding her leadership, are now left stunned. A mayor who once promised to uplift the community has now seemingly abandoned them, leaving behind financial ruin and political disarray. Authorities are scrambling to track her whereabouts and uncover the full extent of her alleged wrongdoings. But Dolton now finds itself at the heart of an unprecedented scandal. What began as a story of defiance, corruption, and suspicion has now turned into a real-life drama that's left the community reeling, feeling betrayed, and demanding answers. Will Henyard ever face justice, or has she managed to slip away without consequence? Only time will tell. But here's the real kicker. What's going on, Tiffy? You didn't just vanish, did you? Tiffany Henyard has found herself at the center of an escalating storm of controversy that's been dominating headlines for months. The former mayor and Thornton Township supervisor has become the target of a growing list of serious accusations, ranging from allegations of corruption and theft to reports of violent and abusive behavior toward employees. These revelations have painted a grim picture of her time in office, eroding public trust in her leadership and sparking outrage across the community. Despite the mounting controversies, Henyard managed to hold on to her position for quite some time. However, recent developments have pushed her once secure status to the brink of collapse. For months, federal authorities have quietly been investigating her, but their inquiries are gaining real traction as the evidence against her becomes more compelling. It was becoming clear that an arrest was imminent, and this heightened scrutiny marked the beginning of what many believe could turn into one of the biggest scandals in the area's history. The charges against Henyard seemed to form a web of deceit, corruption, and misconduct, and it was only a matter of time before she'd be held accountable. But in an unexpected twist, she managed to evade capture, setting off alarm bells about the nature of her disappearance. What seemed like a desperate attempt to flee was actually much more calculated than anyone could have imagined. It seems like Henyard's disappearance was a highly calculated and orchestrated move. There are mounting suspicions that Tiffany Henyard was tipped off about the ongoing federal investigation, giving her the foresight to plan her escape in a way that allowed her to slip out of the public eye with minimal resistance. The way she vanished has left many wondering how someone could evade capture so seamlessly, especially with the increased attention on her case. It seems highly improbable that such a well-executed getaway could have been carried out without inside knowledge of the federal investigation. This has fueled growing speculation that someone within her inner circle, possibly even individuals, within the local government or among her trusted allies, may have warned her about the impending arrest. The timing of her disappearance suggests she was able to strategically plan her exit making it appear more like an operation than a desperate, last-minute dash to avoid capture. It raises the unsettling possibility that this escape was not the action of a desperate woman running from justice, but rather a deliberate effort by those with the right knowledge and resources to protect her from facing the consequences of her alleged actions. As the days go by, questions continue to swirl about who might have helped Henyard slip away and what their motivations were for aiding her in evading capture. The fact that her escape involved such careful planning implies that there may be much deeper levels of corruption and betrayal at play. Those who helped her avoid arrest, if any, are likely part of a larger network, one that could extend far beyond what anyone has yet imagined. The possibility that powerful figures may have shielded her from the law only intensifies suspicions about her leadership and the broader government corruption that may have been at play. What initially began as a controversial political career filled with missteps and poor decisions has now spiraled into a full-blown scandal, one that continues to unravel. Henyard's escape marks just one chapter in a much larger, more complicated narrative. The ongoing federal investigation is expected to keep digging deeper, with the possibility of more shocking details emerging as authorities explore her activities and the events that led to her flight. While Henyard may have temporarily evaded justice, her past is catching up with her. It's only a matter of time before the truth behind her escape is fully revealed, and those who helped her evade arrest will be held accountable. In the meantime, the public is left to grapple with the broader implications of her actions. The larger question now is not just about her guilt or innocence, but about the depth of corruption, dishonesty, and potential collusion that may have enabled her to avoid capture for so long. What is becoming clear is that Tiffany Henyard's story is far from over. As the investigation continues to unfold, more startling revelations are likely to emerge. These revelations will undoubtedly keep both the public and authorities on edge as the full scope of this scandal begins to take shape.
Take a one-day purchase of over $40,000 to Amazon. And the main thing is,
the circumstances surrounding Tiffany Henyard's escape have taken a startling turn, sending shockwaves through the public. It's becoming clear that her disappearance was no mere coincidence. The word on the street is that she meticulously orchestrated her flight from justice under the guise of what was supposed to be a routine business trip to another state. On the surface, it appeared to be a simple, mundane trip to handle official matters, but beneath this calm exterior, it was anything but ordinary. This trip turned out to be her ticket out of the country, taking advantage of a rare window of opportunity. While authorities were still laser-focused on scrutinizing her actions locally. At the time, the mounting accusations against Henry, corruption, theft, and even violence, had put her under a microscope, with federal authorities watching her every move. The relentless media attention only heightened the pressure. But it was precisely in this moment of intense scrutiny that she found her chance to escape. As authorities concentrated their efforts on monitoring her within the country, they failed to anticipate that she might seize the opportunity to flee abroad. What makes her escape even more shocking is the glaring oversight on the part of those tasked with overseeing her case. Despite the swirling storm of accusations, the federal investigation inching closer, and the constant media focus, it seems the agencies involved allowed her to slip away undetected and without significant resistance. The fundamental question that arises is, how could such a high-profile figure, one under intense scrutiny, be allowed to simply walk away? It's almost as if those in charge of monitoring her were blind to the possibility that she might take one last chance to disappear. The lack of proactive measures to prevent her escape raises critical concerns about the competence and preparedness of the agencies handling her case. How could they allow this to happen? How could they not anticipate that amid all the pressure and heat, Tiffany Henyard might attempt such a bold move? The oversight seems almost unfathomable, especially given the scale of the investigation and the severity of the charges against her. The fact that Henyard was able to leave the country without facing significant obstacles or resistance is both troubling and baffling. It's even more perplexing considering the immense public and governmental focus on her case. Authorities were clearly aware of the allegations and the growing pressure, yet they somehow failed to put in place the necessary safeguards to prevent her from exploiting a vulnerable moment. Her successful escape from the grasp of the law not only exposes flaws in the oversight of her case, but also points to systemic weaknesses within law enforcement agencies in handling high-profile individuals accused of major crimes. Her flight is not just an act of evasion. It's a stark demonstration of how, despite the best efforts of authorities, individuals under the microscope can still find a way to slip through the cracks. This has cast a dark shadow over the entire investigation, raising serious questions about the competency of the agencies involved. Public outrage continues to grow, and as the story unfolds, more and more people are left wondering who dropped the ball. Will those responsible for this massive oversight ever be held accountable? In many ways, Tiffany Henry's escape has become a symbol of how even the most closely watched figures can find ways to escape justice. It highlights major flaws in the system. The situation now stands as a testament to the potential dangers of complacency within the federal system. The authorities' failure to prevent her from fleeing the country has only made her disappearance more intriguing, sparking discussions about the deeper forces at play. What really happened behind the scenes? And what role did systemic weaknesses play in allowing her to pull off such a daring escape? As the investigation into her flight continues, one thing is certain: the public is demanding answers. The revelations that emerge may just change the way high-profile cases are handled in the future.
Developments in South Suburban Dalton today. First, the state comptroller has suspended some payments to the village because it has failed to follow the law by providing financial.
Imagine this scenario unfolding like something straight out of a crime thriller. The tension, the betrayal, the plot twists. It all makes sense when we dive deeper into what led Tiffany to make such a drastic move. According to insiders, there's a credible buzz surrounding an impending arrest warrant. Authorities were allegedly preparing to make their move next week, and Tiffany, ever the crafty figure, seems to have caught wind of it just in time. Can you even begin to imagine the panic that must have set in when she realized what was coming? 1 minute, she's standing before the public, playing the part of an indignant public servant, denying any wrongdoing with a poker face. The next minute, she's in full scramble mode, frantically plotting her escape before the authorities come knocking. It's almost as if she knew this day would come and was preparing herself for it. The question then becomes, what could have triggered such drastic action? Several new developments in the small south suburban village of Dalton have recently emerged, painting a much clearer picture of the chaos Tiffany was involved in. To start, the state controller has suspended payments to the village after discovering that the local government had failed to provide the required financial reports. This oversight alone could have been bad enough for Tiffany, but it gets worse. There's growing speculation that her charity fund, which was supposed to serve as a noble cause, was instead used to line her own pockets. Yes, insiders are claiming that what was intended to be a beacon of hope for the community may have been nothing more than a convenient front for personal financial gain. As authorities began to investigate these shady dealings, Tiffany, knowing the walls were closing in, allegedly did what any desperate person would do to avoid capture. She took matters into her own hands. Reports suggest that she quickly funneled a large sum of money through the charity right before it was seized. The goal? To launder the funds, making it seem as if they were going toward charitable causes when, in reality, they were meant to be a safety net for her escape. It's almost as if she'd been planning her exit for months, carefully setting the stage to ensure that when the time came, she would have the financial means to slip away undetected. And, to a degree, it worked. She managed to get out of Dodge, at least for now. What's even more perplexing is the question of why the authorities didn't act sooner. Why wasn't Tiffany's financial activity flagged earlier? Why wasn't her name added to a no-fly list or her assets frozen before she had the chance to make her getaway? The million-dollar question remains unanswered, and a lot of theories are circulating. Some believe Tiffany had someone on the inside, a mysterious ally who helped her stay one step ahead of the law. Others speculate it was simply plain old incompetence on the part of the authorities. Whatever the case, it's clear Tiffany managed to outsmart everyone around her, maybe even the government itself. Now it's highly probable that Tiffany is living it up somewhere far from the prying eyes of the public, possibly sipping cocktails on a tropical beach while the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces of the mess she left behind. But that's not where the story ends. There's a troubling pattern here. This isn't the first time a public official has fled the scene in the face of scandal. Take, for instance, the case of Joel L., the financier behind the infamous Nave scandal. He's been on the run for years after fleeing the country to avoid criminal charges. It seems that when the heat gets turned up, some people have a way of vanishing into thin air. Tiffany's actions follow the same playbook. When the going gets tough, she gets going, far, far away. The thing is, it's hard not to feel a sense of justice slipping through the cracks. Wrongdoing should be met with accountability, but in this case, Tiffany seems to have outwitted the very systems put in place to hold her accountable. So, what does the future hold for her? That's anyone's guess. If she's smart, she'll lay low for a while. She might even go so far as to change her identity, adopting a new life to avoid detection. On the other hand, it's possible she's already scheming her next big move, setting up shop in a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the United States. Given her track record, it wouldn't be all that surprising if she's already mapped out her escape to a location where she can live without the constant threat of being captured. Tiffany Henry's escape has taken a stunning turn, and the web of deception continues to unravel in ways that leave the public in shock. She's accumulated years of wealth, but that won't be the struggle she faces while hiding. However, let's not forget the root cause of all this chaos. Tiffany wasn't just a politician who made a few questionable decisions. The allegations against her have escalated into something far more severe: corruption, funds mismanagement, and abuse of power on a scale that most would never dare imagine. Some reports claim Tiffany verbally and physically abused her employees, an allegation that would be shocking enough on its own. But it doesn't stop there. Tiffany allegedly privatized the local police force, using law enforcement to further her own personal agenda. Meanwhile, millions of dollars that were meant for community projects and services mysteriously disappeared on her watch. Instead, records reveal lavish spending on extravagant vacations, luxurious hotels, and high-end dining experiences. It's as if she transformed the town into her personal playground, using her power to silence anyone who dared challenge her. Those who spoke out against her or questioned her methods were met with retribution, whether through intimidation, threats, or worse. So where does this leave us? Tiffany may have escaped for now, but she's far from out of the woods. If she stays on the run, it's only a matter of time before the authorities catch up with her. The question remains: will that time come soon enough to hold her accountable for the damage she's caused, or will she continue to slip through the cracks? While everyone else deals with the fallout of her actions, as the town supervisor, I feel compelled to address this situation. While I won't be taking questions or offering further comments, I want to make it clear that we're all deeply affected by what has transpired. Tiffany Henry's story is a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked power, greed, and corruption. She rose to a position of influence in a small town, initially hailed as a beacon of change. However, behind her lofty ambitions and public persona lies a tale of financial mismanagement, toxic leadership, and outright criminal behavior that has ultimately left the town in ruins. Tiffany's financial irresponsibility was one of the first red flags. It was reported that she made a shocking purchase of over $140,000 on Amazon in a single day, an expense that immediately raised concerns. But when her actions were questioned, rather than offering accountability, Tiffany either stonewalled her, critics, or lashed out, accusing everyone of being against her. This pattern of behavior was just the beginning. As time went on, it became apparent that the town's finances were in disarray, with millions of dollars unaccounted for. Yet Tiffany remained unfazed, leaving the people to wonder how they had allowed it all to slip through their fingers. When it came to law enforcement, Tiffany's power extended far beyond the financial realm. She was accused of having personal connections within the police force, using her influence to create a toxic work environment where dissent was not tolerated. Those who didn't fall in line were either fired or bullied into submission. Former employees came forward detailing how Tiffany's grip on the force wasn't just about maintaining power, but about silencing opposition. If someone spoke out or criticized her, they were either targeted for retaliation or worse, manipulated into false arrests. What was supposed to be law enforcement, protecting the town, became an extension of Tiffany's personal vendettas. Officers, who should have been out on the streets fighting real crime, were instead enforcing fear. Then there was the charity she ran, supposedly to help cancer patients. On paper, it looked legitimate, but in practice, it was just another front for Tiffany's shady dealings. Financial records for the charity were a mess, with little transparency regarding where the donations were actually going. As investigators began to dig into the charity's finances, numerous discrepancies were uncovered, and soon federal agents became involved. However, by the time they started closing in on her, Tiffany had already made her move, vanishing without a trace. The authorities were left scrambling to pick up the pieces. Despite all the red flags, Tiffany was allowed to continue her reign of manipulation and abuse of power until the damage was done. The town of Dolton, once a struggling but hopeful community, was now in ruins, burdened with millions of dollars in debt, services cut, and residents left to wonder how they'd allowed someone like Tiffany to cause so much destruction. But the worst part? The realization that as long as Tiffany stays out of the country, it will be incredibly difficult for authorities to bring her to justice. Tiffany had played her cards perfectly, and now the town grapples with the fallout. She's likely somewhere, untouched by the consequences of her actions, planning her next move. As the town supervisor, I feel compelled to address this situation. While there will be no questions taken, it's important to acknowledge that we're all affected. Tiffany Henry's story is a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power, greed, and corruption. She entered office with grand ideas and an ego to match, and for a time, it seemed like nothing could stop her. But as we've seen throughout history, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The question now is whether Tiffany's fall was the result of her own excess, or if it was a failure of the system that allowed her to operate unchecked for far too long. If Tiffany has truly managed to escape justice and is now living a new life somewhere, it's a bitter pill for the residents of Dolton to swallow. It means that in the end, she may have won. Meanwhile, the town is left to pick up the pieces and rebuild after the damage she has caused. It's a slow, painful process, and as authorities try to figure out what to do next, there's a grim realization. Tiffany may have already planned her next escape. An international arrest warrant may be issued, but who knows if it will lead to anything. Tiffany is still free, and for now, all we can do is watch and wait as this story unfolds. One thing's for sure, Tiffany Henry is full of surprises. Perhaps we haven't heard the last of her yet. What do you think? Was her escape the result of careful planning by a mastermind, or did she have inside help to get away undetected? Should the authorities have acted more quickly to prevent her from fleeing? Regardless of the answers, one thing remains clear. Tiffany's actions have left an indelible mark on the town, and the people of Dolton are left to deal with the fallout. Stay tuned. This saga may not be over just yet.